There is something gradually disappearing in Maryland, a city that was once one of the wealthiest and most prosperous in the United States. Not money, not technology, and not skyscrapers. But it is the belief in the American dream that with enough effort, everyone deserves a home to return to.
Once a symbol of industry and opportunity in America, Maryland now faces an out-of-control homelessness crisis. Tent camps are sprouting up like mushrooms along the parks. Trash and foul odors cover the sidewalks, and there are no-go zones that even the police dare not enter. Here, people not only lose their homes, but also their place in society, their identity, and even their right to live like ordinary human beings. In today's video, we will take you straight into the hell of homelessness in Maryland to see a dark side that few dare to face. A real-life hell, where silence, indifference, and half-hearted policies have pushed thousands of people into despair. As usual, this is not a pessimistic warning, but a reflective perspective from various sources aimed at helping the community understand better and prepare proactively. Are you ready to explore the dark side of the most vibrant and luxurious city in America? Let's start right now. Maryland, a state that many still believe to be an ideal place to live, work, and raise a family, is witnessing a nightmare of homelessness spreading and shattering all beliefs and illusions of safety. No longer are there just a few individuals wandering. No longer are there special hardship cases needing assistance. This has become a wave of crisis, smoldering and persistent, sweeping away everything a person needs to live. Not just a roof over their head, but also the belief that they are still a part of society.
Because there's so many unfortunate people. There's just so many homeless people out here.
Along the highways in Baltimore, people are starting to get used to the sight of old cars or dilapidated shacks quietly sitting in the corners of parking lots. Inside, entire families huddle under thin blankets in the cold night. The bridges that were once just for cars to pass through have now become shelters for the elderly living on Social Security. Some areas are even referred to as no-go zones, where even uniformed officers dare not tread, because the societal ills and despair have become so deeply entrenched that they are beyond control. You might hear someone say there are over 7,000 homeless people in Maryland. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. And the submerged part, those who temporarily stay in unregistered cars, hide under underground sewers, or if they're a bit luckier, those who temporarily stay with acquaintances or friends, but their future is still uncertain. Statistics can quantify soulless numbers, but they cannot measure helplessness and despair. In the past, people often thought that homelessness was due to unfortunate events or laziness. But the reality has changed. The issue of homelessness has gradually become a major crisis, leaving no one safe from the spiral of having nowhere to return to. An unexpected medical bill, a time when there was a layoff. 1 month, the rent skyrocketed by a few $100s. Just like that, it is enough to push a hard-working person into becoming a marginalized individual in a very short time. But what breaks people's hearts is not just the sight of living under the open sky, but it is the fact that they were once workers, contributors, and made great efforts, only to now be forgotten as if they never existed. The image of veterans sitting with their knees hugged in the corners of the streets, workers returning from companies to shelters, or even children having to sleep in tents has gradually become a new normal in the urban landscape. Think about it. A child growing up in such a deprived environment. Do they still have any chance to dream of a bright future? Or do they just pray to God that they won't go hungry tomorrow? We live in a society where just turning into a small alley is like stepping into two different worlds. On one corner of the street are brightly lit villas, luxury shopping malls filled with high-end brands and upscale restaurants. On that street corner is the soul of people slowly fading away without anyone bothering to notice, because they are not part of the economic development plan. Maryland is no longer just the story of one state. It is a mirror, reflecting the deep cracks within the heart of America. A society where people invest billions in technology, but cannot ensure a roof over the heads of its citizens. If a roof over one's head is no longer attainable in a developed civilized society, then who are we really building the future for? In Maryland, there are places where the law is just a distant concept. Not because there are no police, but because even the police don't dare to step in. Baltimore is an example. Once a symbol of industry in the East, many neighborhoods in West Baltimore now resemble dark corners forgotten by society. Did you know that the city of Baltimore alone, once called the jewel of the East Coast, is now bearing nearly 1/3 of the total homeless population of the entire state of Maryland? The percentage has reached 32.7%, far surpassing any other area. If you only look at that soulless number, perhaps you won't be able to understand the whole story hidden within it. It cannot show you the scene of an elderly person burning paper in a tin can to keep warm under the bridge. It cannot describe the feeling of a child huddled in a tattered tent by the roadside when the temperature outside is -2 degrees Celsius. And surely it cannot capture the feeling of helplessness of a city rotting from within, where even the police no longer want to step into certain areas after sunset. Baltimore, once the center of many urban redevelopment programs in the past, has now become a symbol of the failure of half-hearted policies. Where millions of dollars were once poured into housing renovation projects, there are now streets where the number of temporary tents exceeds the number of open stores. Areas like Sandtown Winchester, Cherry Hill, or the Inner Harbor downtown once represented the image of life-changing opportunities. Now they stand as evidence of the complete abandonment by the entire system. The homeless in Baltimore do not just sleep on the streets. They live in the shadows of a legal and humanitarian system that has gradually fractured. Many of them used to be delivery workers, laborers, even nurses or veterans. But when they can no longer afford rent because housing prices have doubled in a decade, they are pushed out of normal life and fall straight into a world that society has turned its back on. But Baltimore is just the tip of the iceberg. Not far from there, the triad of Charles, Calvert, and Saint. Mary's counties, once considered affluent suburbs, are becoming the second hotspot for homelessness, accounting for 14.5% of the entire state. Even more frightening, these areas were once considered places to start over with affordable living costs and peaceful surroundings. But now, from churches, parking lots to the edge of the forest, you can encounter makeshift tents, cars turned into mobile homes for a night's rest. Some people choose to hunker down in silence, building new lives for themselves in sewers made of scrap and the remnants of their self-respect. Some others have given up, and the rest are playing with each night, just hoping to hold on to a bit of faith in a world where being poor almost means being pushed out of society. When even the areas considered the most stable are collapsing day by day, is there anywhere truly safe for the working people in this country? And if Baltimore is just the beginning, where will Maryland drift when the crisis no longer stops at numbers, but has started to take away living souls? Have you ever wondered, if tomorrow you lose your job, no longer have money for rent, and no one by your side, how long would you last on these cold streets? A week? 3 days? Or just one night? In Maryland, thousands of people don't need to imagine that. They are living it, minute by minute, hour by hour, in a hell called the cost of living. In one of the wealthiest states in America, where the government can spend millions on urban beautification projects, there are people rummaging through trash bins looking for old bread crusts to get through the night. They no longer dream of a roof over their heads or a peaceful night's sleep. At this moment, their only dream is to have enough to eat, not have their belongings stolen, and survive another day. Maryland ranks among the top 7 places with the highest cost of living in the country, with rent prices 40% higher than the national average, exceeding the affordability of most low-income workers. But the issue is not just about the prices. The real price is the gradual loss of basic rights, a real home, a nutritious meal, and even the respect of society. A person who once had a job, once had a place to return to, once had a family, now can only curl up in a tattered old blanket under the bridge in the bone-chilling winter. Do you know the feeling of having to choose between buying medicine or buying a full meal? Many homeless people in Maryland are used to that. A stomachache pill can also be equivalent to 2 meals. A simple medical bill can also consume all the money they have saved over several months. The persistent coughs, the unbandaged wounds, and the aches from lying on the concrete floor, all of these become lifelong companions for them. We often think that as long as we try, anyone can overcome. But for the homeless in Maryland, just trying isn't enough. They need a whole system that knows how to embrace them, to see them as ordinary people, not just a statistic in a budget report. They need a society that dares to look pain in the eye, instead of turning a blind eye and walking away as if those lives were completely invisible. If survival has become a gamble and a home is the reward for the lucky, then what is Maryland showing the rest of America? Are we quietly accepting a country where human existence must be bought at too high a price? Under each faded plastic tarp is a story, sometimes surprisingly short, sometimes as long as a lifetime. No one is born to live on the streets. But when you sit and talk with them, the most heartbreaking thing is not their current situation, but how they still try to maintain a bit of dignity amidst the hell. I met a 62-year-old man sitting next to a cart full of plastic bottles and a few worn-out old blankets. He used to be a mechanic, working for 30 years in a factory near Baltimore. But the factory closed after the financial crisis. The family was separated due to the pandemic, and the health insurance was insufficient to cover the expenses. He sold the house to cover the medical expenses. When it was all over, Marcus had nothing left. Just a cloth bag with a few papers and scattered memories of happy days that he didn't know where to put. The worst thing, he said, is not the cold or hunger, but that no one looks me in the eye anymore. People walk by as if I were a trash can. Then there was a woman who used to be an elementary school teacher in Charles County. After her husband passed away and their pension wasn't enough to cover the rent, she moved from a small apartment to an old minivan. During the day, she reads books in the library. At night, she parks in the Walmart loading dock, trying not to draw attention. "I don't want to be a burden to anyone," she said. "I just want to live like everyone else." And then there are the children. In camps like those in West Baltimore, it's not uncommon to see children huddled in street corners, waiting for a piece of bread from the help and kindness of passers-by. The quiet, kind people who try to blend into the atmosphere amidst the chaos. They are living proof that homeless people are not the lazy or criminals that societal prejudices have often labelled them as. They once had a home, once tried, once were us. They do not seek anything extravagant. They only need to be seen, to be heard, and most importantly, to be recognised as a part of society. Because what pains them the most is not losing their home, but losing the right to exist as a human being in the heart of wealthy America. Are we living in a country where a person's fate can be so easily forgotten? How many more children? How many more workers? How many more elderly people will have to bear the silence of a system that is no longer tolerant of the vulnerable? In recent years, the Maryland state government has announced several ambitious plans to address the homelessness crisis. The Housing First program, emergency support centers, additional budget for mental health services, and media campaigns urging community involvement. On paper, everything is correct, full of goodwill, with a humanitarian spirit. But the reality out there tells a different story, a story steeped in helplessness and failure. Housing First, the program expected to be the cure-all, sets a simple goal: provide stable housing first, then address issues related to mental health, employment, or social evils. Sounds very reasonable. But the implementation is slow. lacking housing, lacking personnel, and lacking diligence. Cities like Baltimore have never had enough space for all those in need of help. And many people are removed from the list simply because they lack a document or have previously violated the rules of the shelter. Meanwhile, the waiting time to be assigned housing stretches to several months, even up to a year. For the homeless, each day is a struggle for survival. They cannot wait that long. Physical and mental healthcare centers are also overwhelmed. Non-profit organizations, which are the backbone of the local relief system, are having to operate in a state of severe funding shortage. Some organizations can only survive on community donations. And the community itself is weary and divided. And so, layer by layer, people are falling out of the support system, quietly but ruthlessly. Even at times, the local authorities chose to resolve the situation through forced eviction. The homeless camp was dismantled overnight. Tents were destroyed, belongings were gathered like trash. But they didn't provide an alternative solution. They just want to clean up, because the image is not good for investors or the urban beauty of the city. Dismantling tents is not a way to help the struggling lives on the streets. But for some leaders, that's a way to make the problem disappear from sight, even though it continues to smolder beneath the freshly laid asphalt. There are also politicians who dare to speak up, proposing reforms to the housing system, long-term support, and community reintegration. But in an environment where the budget is contested by countless other priorities, the homeless always end up at the bottom of the list. They have no voice, no power, and cannot vote. So why prioritize them? Is a government established to serve the people still fulfilling its role when it cannot protect the most vulnerable? And when the people lose faith in the system, what can we hold on to besides skepticism? If Maryland, a state that once ranked among the top for household income, has a relatively developed healthcare system and is considered progressive, has also fallen into a severe homelessness crisis, what awaits the rest of America? Because this is not just the story of one state. This is a projected image of the future that America is quietly sliding into. A future where the gap between those with homes and those without is widening, and the deterioration of the public system is no longer a warning, but a reality unfolding before our eyes. When major cities like Baltimore can no longer control lawless areas, when social order is replaced by survival instinct, it means that the final layers of protection are cracking. What is happening in Maryland is no longer within the bounds of the word danger. It is living proof clear as day that the social system, which was built on the belief that people would be cared for in times of need, is gradually falling apart piece by piece. And the scariest part? Most people haven't had the chance to realize it, or they are too tired to care. The instability in Maryland does not only threaten the homeless, it creates a domino effect. When the area you live in becomes less safe, real estate loses value, small businesses go bankrupt, schools lack funding, and the local healthcare system becomes overwhelmed. At that point, even those who have jobs and homes no longer feel certain about tomorrow. The fear is not just for those who sleep on the streets, it seeps into every ordinary household. We are witnessing an America with two parallel realities. On one side is the world of gated communities, expensive SUVs, and brightly lit shopping malls that stay open all night. On the other side are makeshift tents, charitable meals, sleepless nights in the cold outdoors, and the lost gazes of those abandoned by the very dream they once believed in. Maryland is not just a city caught in a crisis, but also a mirror reflecting and exposing its hidden corners. What's even scarier is that many other states are starting to reflect a similar image. California, Oregon, New York, Illinois. The lands once called civilized, advanced, now contain dark corners no one wants to see. What happens when we accept the presence of the homeless as a normal part of urban life? What happens when the younger generation grows up in a country where seeing people sleeping on the sidewalk is too familiar? When compassion wears thin, and we stop asking questions, stop being outraged, stop caring? What will be left of a society that once prided itself on leaving no one behind? If today Maryland is the starting point, is the place you live really immune to that future? And if America is gradually getting used to leaving the poor with no place in society, can we still call this a nation? Or is it just a collection of temporary tents interspersed with luxury villas and invisible walls that no one wants to break down? Maryland is no longer just a fading bright spot on the map of America. It has become a painful mirror, clearly reflecting the cracks spreading across this nation, where wealth and modernity can no longer hide the injustice, where even once prosperous states are bowing to the tide of homelessness rising like a tsunami. This is no longer just a problem for Baltimore or the dark streets. This is a wake-up call for our collective conscience, a warning that poverty, despair, and the collapse of humanity are knocking on the doors of every community, every value that America prides itself on building. We can continue to turn our backs, walk past those curled up under cold tarps, pretending not to see. But then there will come a time when we can no longer pretend, because that crisis has gradually become our own story. The issue is not just how many people sleep on the streets. The issue is why a country that once led the world allows this to happen, and lets it happen right before our eyes, in the silence of an entire system. If Maryland is a reflection of America's future, then what you see in it is a warning, or the sentence we are writing for ourselves. What do you think about the homeless hell in Maryland? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Please note, the information in the video is compiled from public and reliable sources, aimed at analysis and providing a reference perspective. The video is not intended to incite, criticize individuals, or provide financial legal advice. Viewers should consider additional information before making a decision.